كان في إشارة بقت ميدان، ناس حلمها يعود الوطن لولاده من بعد اللي كان.
كبر الميدان وصبح وطن، فرح الوطن مليون ميدان. رابعة الصوت، رابعة الأمل، رابعة ما تعرفش انكسار. رابعة الصوت، رابعة الأمل، لكل حر بلد شعار. بالمسك متحن التراب، بدم ودموع الشباب، مهما أذان الفجر غاب، رجع أكيد شمس النهار.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قبل ما نبدأ الجزء الثاني للمؤتمر، الجزء السياسي باللغة الإنجليزية، أود أن أشكر كل من شارك في المؤتمر هذا الصباح، وأشكر العلماء الأفاضل لرسالتهم القوية الموجهة للداخل، وأقول إن المجلس الثوري المصري على يقين إن الرسالة اللي احنا سمعناها هذا الصباح هي رسالة المجلس الثوري المصري، هي الرسالة اللي احنا متمسكين بيها. إن ما حدث في رابعة هو يمثل ومقاومة كل من وقف في رابعة وكل من استشهد في رابعة، إن هم ضمير الأمة الإسلامية، هم ضمير مصر. واللي حصل في رابعة هي مش جريمة ضد فصيل في المجتمع المصري، لكن هي جريمة ضد كل المصريين. وإن احنا في المجلس الثوري المصري على العهد متمسكين بشرعية الدكتور محمد مرسي، بإرادة الشعب المصري، بحق الشهداء، حق أهالي الشهداء للقصاص العادل. الجريمة اللي حصلت في رابعة لا تغفر. إحنا كالمجلس الثوري لا يمكن أبداً أن ندخل في أي نوع من اتفاقية مع المجلس العسكري، مع العسكر. لا يمكن ينتهي من غير إنهاء المنظومة العسكرية بالكامل. وإحنا النهاردة بنقولها بكل وضوح من المنصة هنا في الخارج: الثورة مستمرة، الشعب المصري هينتصر، وإن الخطوات اللي احنا بندعو شباب مصر وأحرار مصر يتخذوها هي هتؤدي بإذن الله لعودتنا لرابعة وكل ميادين مصر أحرار بإذن الله ومنتصرين بإذن الله تعالى ضد المنظومة العسكرية. بعد إذن حضراتكم، قبل ما نبدأ الجزء السياسي، وأنا كمان مش عاجبني فكرة الجزء الديني والسياسي، إحنا في معركة واحدة، إحنا كشعب واحد بكل المجموعات اللي فيه العلماء والشباب وكل المجموعات اللي شغالة، الأحرار اللي موجودين والثوار على الأرض، هيشتغلوا مع بعض لتحرير مصر بكل الوسائل السلمية، بكل الوسائل المقاومة المشروعة. أحب أقدم رسالة المجلس الثوري المصري. البيان هيقرأ، يتفضل الأخ علي بقراءة بيان المجلس الثوري المصري، اللي هيقرأ برضو في كندا، في سويسرا، في أمريكا، وفي إسطنبول إن شاء الله، وبيقرأ النهاردة من لندن، ويوجه المجلس الثوري رسالة لأحرار مصر. اتفضل يا أستاذ علي.
بيان ذكرى رابعة العدوية إن شاء الله. أولا نبدأ بسم الله. قبل 4 أعوام من الآن وفي 14 من أغسطس حدثت واحدة من أكبر مجازر التاريخ، وسقط 5000 شهيد في يوم واحد على أرض مصر دفاعا عنها ضد الانقلابيين وأعوانهم الخونة. لقد عاش مئات الآلاف تلك اللحظات الفارقة من تاريخ مصر، وعاش بعدهم الملايين من شعب مصر الحر لحظات مشابهة في مجازر متتالية قامت بها ميليشيات العسكر ضد شعب مصر الحر. لقد أكدت أحداث ال4 سنوات السابقة مدى عظمة وبطولة شهداء رابعة وأخواتها من المجازر، فكل قطرة دم سقطت على أرض مصر كانت بمثابة مصباح نور يضيء لنا الطريق ويرشدنا إلى الصواب، وتجعلنا نزداد يقينا عن عدونا الذي يسجن مصر وشعبها، ويعلمنا من صديقنا ومن عدونا. إن دماء رابعة وما قبلها وبعدها من مجازر للأبرياء علمتنا أن هؤلاء الشهداء هم أطهر من فينا، وهم النور الذي نهتدي به. إن كل من كان في شوارع مصر وكل الشعب المصري الحر هذه الأيام الكارثية يحمل في رقبته دين لدماء الشهداء، وكل من حمل شهيدا أو مصاب أو رأى طلقات الخيانة تخترق جباه الأبطال يحمل في عنقه دينا لا يزول إلا بالانتصار على الخونة والثأر لدمائهم. إن المجلس الثوري المصري إذ يؤكد على أن حق الشهداء كل الشهداء لن يموت، وأن كل المحاولات التي تسعى لإلغاء أحداث الانقلاب العسكري وما تلاه من كوارث من عقول الجماهير من التاريخ مصيرها الفشل، وأن الخونة سيحاسبون يوما ما على إجرامهم، وأن شعب مصر الحر الذي كان كالطوفان الهادر في 16 أغسطس 2013 يحمل روحه على كفيه دفاعا عن مصر المختطفة سيحرر مصر من الخونة، وسيرسل المجلس الثوري كل التحية لكل أهالي الشهداء والمصابين والمعتقلين والمطاردين ممن نعلمهم وممن لا نعلمهم ويعلمهم الله، ويعدهم بالقصاص والنصر المبين. ونعلم يقينا أن الأرض لا تشرب الدماء، وأن راحة الشهداء في القصاص العادلة من القتلة الخونة. يسقط الخونة، عاشت مصر، ويسقط كل الخونة. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me welcome you in the second part of this conference to the political section of the conference regarding the 4th anniversary or the 4th memorial of the Raba massacre, which took place on the 14th of August 2013. We are going to hear from Dr. Ahmed Abu Ismail. He's an eyewitness. He's a doctor who used to work in the field hospital in Raba and has first-hand experience about the injuries and what he saw in that hospital in terms of crimes. We're going to hear from Mr. Dawood Abdallah, who is the director of Middle East Monitor. We're going to hear a statement from the barrister Mr. Toby Cadman and Mr. Carl Buckley from Guernica, who are going to talk about the legal issues regarding Raba. They sent their apologies, but they sent a very thorough statement which states their opinion of the matter. This will be read by Dr. Ahmed from Birmingham Egyptians. We're going to hear from Mr. Mohammed Sudan. He is responsible for the foreign affairs in the Freedom and Justice Party, the party that was taken out of power by the military coup in 2013 and whose members have suffered endlessly since that coup. We're going to hear from Dr. Farouk Musahid, who is the head and leader of Birmingham Egyptians, and this is a grassroots movement of Egyptians in the UK which works against the military coup and has been steadfast in its opposition to the military regime in Egypt. We're also going to hear from our guest, Mr. Chris Nineham, who is the head of the Stop the War movement. This is one of the biggest civil organizations and non-governmental organizations in the UK, and it's a group of very distinguished individuals who are against war, against violence all over the world, and have been so for the last, since the Iraq War. They have stood steadfast as well since the Iraq War. I'll hand the microphone now to Dr. Maha Azam, the head of the Egyptian Revolutionary Council, who is going to chair the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suha. Let me just say a couple of words as introduction to this day commemorating the Rab'a massacre, the worst massacre in the modern history of Egypt, in which thousands died in a number of hours. They were killed through a systematic process by the security forces and the military regime in Egypt. It was murder on a large scale. Bodies were burned, men, women and children had to flee a peaceful protest in which they were not allowed out because the exits were blocked. Egypt today is a republic of fear. The killing continues. There are over 60,000 political prisoners, torture, extrajudicial killings and disappearances. The international community has fallen short of its duty to stand up to this military regime. The military regime that doesn't allow any kind of opposition, the military regime that quells its own citizens and kills them if they raise their voices and maybe even if they don't. Egypt today is in danger, and its danger has repercussions on the whole region. We are here to commemorate Rab'a. We have with us some distinguished guests who will tell you part of the story of Rab'a, but also this is an opportunity for all of us to remind ourselves as Egyptians and non-Egyptians that the fear of military dictatorship that exists today in Egypt, the fear that is instilled by the military regime in Egypt, means that Egyptians cannot come out and protest easily. That does not mean that they are not opposed to the military regime. They are worried about being picked up and tortured or killed. There is anger in every Egyptian home and in every Egyptian citizen today because of the level of fear and the level of corruption within the Egyptian state. Rab'a was an example of the brutality of the military regime and its security forces. It was a systematic assault on the lives of Egyptian citizens who wanted their democracy back and who opposed the military coup. Let us then not assume that the regime in Egypt is popular. It is extremely unpopular. The regime in Egypt is a dictatorship that kills its own people. We remember today the massacre it committed in Rab'a following the coup, the massacre that happened on August the 14th. We commemorate it, but we also want to ensure that this crime against humanity is not repeated. We seek justice for the victims, and we also want to ensure that such regimes in Egypt and elsewhere are not allowed to exist and are not supported by the international community. That is the only way we can ensure that such massacres do not happen again. Thank you very much. Let me start our session today by turning to an eyewitness account put forward by Dr. Ahmed Abu Ismail. Please.
I find it very difficult to come up today and speak of yet a few hours, but significant horror to my heart. That summer, those days, and remember. I'll speak of one night that I spent in the field hospital in Rab'a. It all started after our nightly prayers. A few hours later, few hours later, we find a young man coming in with a shot between his eyes and a flood of blood coming out. We take him to the limited theaters that we have, open his skull in an attempt with very limited resources to stitch the main blood vessel to the brain, but obviously all in vain, and he dies. This was only a first case, after which for continuous 10 hours of horrifying casualties, non-ending, coming in with shots to the eye, to the chest, to the liver. These were shots meant to kill. They were not shots meant to scare. I would attend to 2 or 3 patients coming in. Because of the amount of casualties, you would have to leave a patient that you could have saved because the hope is less and there's too many others just flooding through, walking amongst corpses on the floor. Mothers, men, children, adults, they make no discrimination. Shots would go through the arm to the other side and through the chest into the belly. These were short-range shots, not by mistake. People losing their eyes, children losing their mums. Horrifying. Hours went by, and all of a sudden we had no gloves, no drains to put into the chests. Blood was all over the floor. We had to close the doors, not because there's no more shotguns, but the casualties are still coming through and we can't help them. There's no more we can offer. Only 25 doctors, over 3,000 admissions with hundreds of deaths. No blood transfusions. These were young patients. Their hearts would continue to bleed with 2-3 liters down the drain. They could have been saved. But all this is nothing compared to the hour after we closed the doors. Starting to hand back these corpses to their families, the oath to their mothers. With us trying to calm the mothers and the relatives of their lost ones was extremely grave, very difficult, very difficult. These people have no mercy whatsoever. This was only a start of the regime which carried on. Someone that can kill an innocent human being will never stop killing, will never stop murdering. I feel pain when an animal is hurt. How can you ever dare shoot an innocent human being in cold blood? Shots went through the brain full thickness and into the chest. In one person, you would shoot head and chest, meaning they don't want to let them go. On the outskirts of Rابعة were the men. There was always segregation between men and women. But once that barrier of men went through to the women, mothers were dying. Why? Subhanallah, la ilaha illallah. Allah Azza wa Jal says, من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا. A verse in the Thawra, in the Injil, in the Bible, in the Quran. If you kill one soul, it's as if you killed all mankind. All mankind, subhanAllah. How can you do this? Even if a sheikh has told you that these people are the enemy, go and shoot them. How can you do this? SubhanAllah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين أفضل الصلاة وتم التسليم على رسول الله الكريم سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. 2 years ago, in July 2015, the regime in Egypt authorized the change of the name of Rابعة العدوية to Hisham Barakat Square. If they thought by doing so they would have erased the memory of what occurred on August the 14th, 2013, then they were mistaken. Our presence here today is proof, is evidence that the memory of this massacre will never be erased from the minds of all humanity, not just Egyptians. What occurred in Rابعة العدوية was unique on the African continent. In Africa, and let me just say, to begin with, I want to do 3 things. I want to make 3 basic points here today. To look at the massacre in the context of the region, and to explain, secondly, why these atrocities are continuing. And finally, what I believe are some of the issues we need to look at in order to go forward. Africa has had its fair shares of massacres, many. But what occurred in Egypt in 2013 was unique. You've heard an evidence here from the doctor. If we go back just to the turn of the 20th century in Sudan, Britain killed 11,000 Sudanese just west of Omdurman in one day, in 5 hours, in order to retake Sudan from what they call the Mahdis. 11,000. But this was a colonial war. This was a war by a colonial power coming to Africa to get control of the Nile, the Suez, and the sea route to India. That was the reason, a colonial war. And when we come later to 1994, what is called the Rwandan massacre, in which 500,000 Tutsis were killed in 100 days. A tribal war. That is what it was. 2 tribes, Hutus and Tutsis. In Egypt, what we had was a national army, not a tribe, a national army, national security forces who were responsible for protecting its people. They murdered them. They murdered them. In Kenya, in 2007, a political dispute again between two tribes, essentially. And what happened in Kenya? 1,400 people, 59 days. And there was an attempt, in fact, 6 politicians were indicted before the ICC in The Hague. No one so far has been indicted in Egypt. No one. This is why it's unique. First, the question of the national, the fact that people have not been held to account. But why are we here? There are, if we may say, structural problems in the society. Problems such as a judiciary, which has lost its moral compass. Extrajudicial killings have continued. We've heard, previous speakers. Forced disappearances, they continue. We have hundreds of people sentenced to death in one hearing in a court. Anyone, anywhere in the world listening to this, to such rulings, will become bewildered, will not believe that it is possible for a judge within minutes of going through a list and sentencing people to their deaths in a wholesale manner. So this is the judiciary. And you have a media that do not adhere to the basic and fundamental standards of the profession, the ethics of the profession, such as, and I've seen more than one journalist, more than one broadcaster say on TV that the fall of Andalus was the responsibility of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's on record. You cannot get anything more outrageous than this. And the reason why, people can shamelessly go on television and say and utter such lies, disgraceful, heinous lies, is because they play on the illiteracy that prevails in Egyptian society. Let's be very clear. Even by the official statistics, at least a quarter of the Egyptian population is illiterate. So they play on this ignorance. They tell them lies, deceptions. And last month, the president, for example, he said what? That the country has a reserves of $36 billion in the national treasury. He did not say, however, that the foreign debt, that first of all this 36 billion was in fact loans given to them by their friends in the Gulf or the IMF, and that the country's foreign debt far supersedes what he claims to be the reserves in the national treasury. But this is the type of deception that is used to make the people believe that things are okay, that there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's not the case. That's not the case. And so we have all these structural problems, a military that is a law unto itself. As long as all of these exist, combined as they are, then you see atrocities like Rابعة العدوية will continue. There is no quick fix to the problems facing Egypt, but it can get out. And our duty you know, who are professionals in various capacities, is to give hope and encouragement and explain why, you know, these atrocities can come to an end and things can turn around. But there are certain steps that must be taken. Egypt has to, we have to get the country back, as it were, regain it. It has been sold, literally sold. We have islands being sold, large sections of land being sold, you know, to foreigners. The country needs to regain its independence, even its territory. That's the problem. We have to start here. And we have to put the country first before any other. As long as we put the military first, or the party first, or the business enterprise first, before the national interest, we can't progress. The country has to come first. I want to, Dr. Maha, just give me 2 minutes, just you know, in concluding. For those who despair and believe, well, you know, Assisi and those responsible for these crimes will get away. I want to take you back to what happened in Chad and Hissène Habré. Hissène Habré ruled Chad from 1982 to 1990. And during those 8 years, 40,000 people were killed. 40,000. Not to mention those who were raped. Not to mention those who were tortured in Chad. And when he was overthrown, he went to Senegal. And he lived as a free man in Senegal for 23 years. But the victims, they never forgot. Shares of massacres. Many. But what occurred in Egypt in 2013 was unique. You've heard an evidence here from the doctor. If we go back just to the turn of the 20th century, in Sudan, Britain killed 11,000 Sudanese just west of Omdurman in 1 day, in 5 hours, in order to retake Sudan from what they call the Nahbis. 11,000. But this was a colonial war. This was a war by a colonial power coming to Africa to get control of the Nile, the Suez, and the sea route to India. That was the reason. A colonial war. And when we come later to 1994, what is called the Rwanda massacre, in which 500,000 Tutsis were killed in 100 days. A tribal war. That is what it was. 2 tribes, Hutus and Tutsis. In Egypt, what we had was a national army. Not a tribe, a national army. National security forces who were responsible for protecting its people. They murdered them. They murdered them. In Kenya, in 2007, a political dispute again between 2 tribes, essentially. And what happened in Kenya? 1,400 people, 59 days, and there was an attempt. In fact, 6 politicians were indicted before the ICC in The Hague. No one so far has been indicted in Egypt. No one. This is why it's unique. First, the question of the national army. And secondly, the fact that people have not been held to account.
But why are we here? There are, if we may say, structural problems in the society. Problems such as a judiciary, which has lost its moral compass. Extrajudicial killings have continued. We've heard, previous speakers, forced disappearances, they continue. We have hundreds of people sentenced to death in one hearing in a court. Anyone, anywhere in the world listening to this, to such rulings, will become bewildered, will not believe that it is possible for a judge within minutes of going through a list and sentencing people to their deaths in a wholesale manner. So this is the judiciary. And you have a media that do not adhere to the basic and fundamental standards of the profession, the ethics of the profession, such as, and I've seen more than one journalist, more than one broadcaster say on TV that the fall of Andalus was the responsibility of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's on record. You cannot get anything more outrageous than this. And the reason why people can shamelessly go on television and say and utter such lies, disgraceful, heinous lies, is because they play on the illiteracy that prevails in Egyptian society. Let's be very clear. Even by the official statistics, at least a quarter of the Egyptian population is illiterate. So they play on this ignorance. They tell them lies, deceptions. Last month, the president, for example, he said what? That the country has a reserves of $36 billion in the national treasury. He did not say, however, that the foreign debt, that first of all this $36 billion was in fact the loans given to them, like their friends in the Gulf or the IMF. And that the country's foreign debt far supersedes what he claims to be the reserves in the national treasury. But this is the type of deception that is used to make the people believe that things are okay, that there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's not the case. That's not the case. And so we have all these structural problems in military. That is a law unto itself. As long as all of these exist, combined as they are, then you see atrocities like Rابعة العدوية will continue. There is no quick fix to the problems facing Egypt, but it can get out. And our duty, who are professionals, in various capacities, is to give hope, encouragement, and explain why these atrocities can come to an end and things can turn around. But there are certain steps that must be taken. Egypt has to, we have to get the country back, as it were, regain it. Has been sold, literally sold. We have islands being sold, large sections of land being sold, to foreigners. The country needs to regain its independence, even its territory. That's the problem. We have to start here. And we have to put the country first before any other. As long as we put the military first, or the party first, or the business enterprise first, for the national interest, we can't progress. Country has to come first. I want to, Dr. Maha, just give me 2 minutes, just you know, in concluding, for those who listen and believe, well, you know, Sisi and those responsible for these crimes will get away. I want to take you back to what happened in Chad, and Hussein Habré. Hussein Habré ruled Chad from 1982 to 1990. And during those 8 years, 40,000 people were killed. 40,000. Not to mention those who were raped. Not to mention those who were tortured in Chad. And when he was overthrown, he went to Senegal. And he lived as a free man in Senegal for 23 years. But the victims, they never forgot. The victims, the mothers, the sisters, the fathers, they never forgot Hussein Habré. And finally, last year, he was brought to a court, an African court, not the ICC in The Hague, an African court. And he was convicted and sent to jail for life. He would die in prison. And so those who think that Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will get away with his crimes, here is a lesson. If he thinks, or those around him think that America will protect him, they should remember Manuel Noriega in Panama, how the Americans dumped him after he served his purposes for the Americans. There will come a time when justice will be brought to those who committed these crimes in Raqqa and Adawiyah. Those who planned, those who executed, those who ordered it, all of them will be brought to justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dawood. I'd like to welcome Chris Nyman from Stop the War. Thank you for joining us today, and I'd like to give you the next.
I'd like to thank you for inviting me and bring solidarity to you all and the organisers, from myself and from the Stop the War Coalition. This is a conference to remember the terrible events of Raqqa 4 years ago, events which brought to an end finally the great hopes that I think many people around the world felt were invested in the great Egyptian revolution. They were also events which our government conspicuously failed to condemn, to the shame of not just the government, but really the whole of the country. The speakers have already documented much better than I can the level of atrocity and the outrage and the horror of those particular events that we rightly remember today. But of course the tragedy is that the regime that consolidated itself at that time is still in office, is still in power, and is still conducting itself in the most repressive way. It's one of the most repressive regimes, not just in the Middle East, not just in the region, but around the world. And I guess the conference has already documented the appalling level of repression, the unprecedented levels of restriction on human rights and civil liberties that exist in Egypt at the moment. Basic human rights are denied, particularly, importantly, any kind of right of assembly, association, political organisation. I'm sure you all know that the appalling level of preemptive arrests and harassment of anyone that tries to organise in any way, whether it's at the level of human rights, whether it's in the trade unions, whether it's at the level of serious journalism or reportage, as Darryl talked about. You know, the sheer level of brutality that is meted out on people is absolutely horrendous. I mean, banning of whole organisations, clearly, including activist organisations, NGOs, human rights organisations, the press syndicate, and clearly massive levels of religious repression as well, and the complete breakdown of basic rights like the freedom of worship. All of these things are well documented by, insofar as they're able to gather the information, because it's very difficult, but well documented, as you all know, by a whole range of international organisations, Human Rights Watch, all sorts of NGOs. There can be no argument, and there is no argument, about what is going on and the appalling nature of the situation in Egypt. And, you know, disgracefully, it might as well not be happening if you listen to the Western media, if you listen to Western government statements on the situation, where they're prepared to criticise different regimes. They criticise the Venezuelan regime, that's the latest fashion. But, you know, when it comes to a much, much more qualitatively different situation, and qualitatively much more draconian situation in Egypt, radio silence. Not just radio silence, worse than that, there is actually active support from the key Western governments. There was a phone call between LCC and our own Prime Minister, Theresa May, at the time when she took office last year, where you can read the, well, it's not exactly a transcript, but you can read the report of the phone conversation on the government websites. There was no mention of any question about civil liberties, about human rights, no discussion whatsoever about those things. And believe me, if there had been, they would have put it out there. So, you know, this was actually about deepening and strengthening the relationship, about increasing business links, which, by the way, the business links between Britain and Egypt are very extensive. I believe that the UK is the source of the greatest amount of foreign direct investment in Egypt beyond any other country, which is, you know, a disgrace given the current situation. Donald Trump, the great leader of the West, has taken things a step further, as you no doubt know, and talked a couple of months before he was elected, of giving strong support for Egypt's war on terrorism and promising to be not just a loyal friend, to be a loyal friend, not just an ally. This is his attitude towards the dictatorship, and unfortunately that's a promise that he's kept, and there have been much stronger ties, increasingly strong ties between the US administration and the Egyptian government since Donald Trump has been elected, including growing involvement of the US-backed institutions like the International Monetary Fund and growing assistance that is being given, as always tied in with kind of, you know, program of neoliberal reforms, but nevertheless growing support from the Western powers. Now, you know, this is appalling in itself. From the point of view of Stop the War, it's part of a wider and increasingly alarming situation in which, under the Trump government, the US is creating a new alliance, or strengthening existing alliances across the Middle East, which are having, I think, very bad consequences, not just in Egypt, but across the region. Without going into too much detail, I guess you know all this anyway, but I think we're seeing a situation where there's a US encouraged increase in a kind of polarization across the Middle East, where the Saudis, the Gulf Cooperation Council in general, Egypt, the US are strengthening a very repressive and very dangerous alliance, which is polarizing the region. I think another effect of it is to isolate, and one of the causes and one of the motives of it is to isolate the Palestinians and try and limit their ability to fight for their own freedom. And it's a development that I think is leading to a greater possibility of the already appalling wars which are taking place in the Middle East, turning into a sort of wider regional war that could be absolutely catastrophic for people who've clearly suffered in almost unimaginable ways over the last 16 years. All this, of course, is taking place against a background of I think across the board, a more aggressive US, a more aggressive Western alliance, which is creating further flashpoints in a number of parts of the globe, in Eastern Europe and the Balkans, as I say, in the Middle East, where the Western alliance is actually involved, as well as supporting a whole range of extremely repressive regimes, including the Egyptians. The US is involved in the decimation of whole cities across the region, including, as we know, Raqqa, Mosul, Sana'a in Yemen. Someone termed or coined the phrase rubberization as a way of describing current levels of the current sort of aspect of US foreign policy in the Middle East, and that's a terrifying word to use, but unfortunately it's a quite graphic and appropriate one for their policies in a number of different countries. So, this is a very, very dangerous regime in the US, which is shamefully supported, probably more than any other regime, is supported by the British government. So, I think the kind of the Western-backed regime in Egypt is part of what is a dangerous sort of trend and development in US foreign policy, which, I mean, it is worth mentioning, is at its most sharp at the moment in the appalling situation that's taking place in the Pacific, the kind of crisis around Korea, which threatens us all with nuclear holocaust if we're not careful, if we don't try and get a change of direction. So it's as some of the speakers said, both in Egypt and across the region, it's a very dangerous and frightening situation. From our point of view, it's a situation in which the movement in Britain is doing everything it can to protest against, to challenge, to confront. We, as you, I hope, know, have over the years stood fair and square behind everyone in Egypt who's been fighting for democracy and fighting for freedom and fighting against dictatorship. We're also continuing our campaign to try and end the Western backing of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, a whole range of other aggressive regimes, and to ultimately try and force a situation where Western diplomatic and military support for these regimes is ended, and that the West finally removes itself from a region which it should never have been in the first place. I want to end my remarks just by just saying a few words about that there are some signs in a bleak world of the possibility of change taking place, and the kind of development of international networks of opposition and resistance to the Western powers. These are, I suppose, first I'd say, the appalling depths to which Donald Trump has taken the US administration has actually led to a reaction there have been, and some of my esteemed colleagues on this very panel have been involved in a kind of national and international campaign against Trump, which actually led to some very, very big protests and demonstrations right across the world in all sorts of different places, which was, I thought was very, very heartening and hopeful. And in particular in Britain, we actually scored a victory, which is that despite Theresa May wanting to position herself as being Donald Trump's greatest ally in the world, she has had to accept the fact that he ain't coming over anytime soon. And the reason he said, and it's quite useful and important to remember, he explicitly said the reason why he's not going to travel to Britain is because he doesn't want to be seen confronted with large-scale mobilisations and demonstrations. And that's important because it shows that, even this so-called special relationship can be challenged and can be threatened and can be weakened by the activity of people like yourselves, of all of us together trying to take a stand against these terrible policies. So that's one thing that we should hold on to as a sign of the possibility of change. The other thing, obviously, which is particularly about Britain, is that we are now in a situation where the leader of the opposition, the leader of the Labour Party, which is, obviously the main opposition party in Britain, is someone who actually is against these foreign wars, is against Western intervention in the Middle East and elsewhere, and is against British diplomatic, political, military support for dictators. Now, that's important both in terms of, we now have the prospect of having a government, because I think the current government here will fall at some stage. We now have the possibility of having a government whose leadership at least stands for peace and justice in the Middle East and beyond. That's very important in itself and can open up all sorts of possibilities. But secondly, it tells you something about the state of mind of people in Britain, that actually Jeremy Corbyn got 13 million people voting for him, which was nearly enough to win the election. That's an awful lot of people who know that he stands for an end to these wars. They know, people, because the media are attacking for it all the time, everyone knows Jeremy Corbyn is a peacenik. It's not like there's ignorance about it. They tried to say he was a supporter of terrorism. They tried to say he was soft on the Brotherhood, he was soft on Venezuela. People just ignored it because people are beginning to understand in this country the nature of the injustice and iniquity of the foreign policy that has been pursued over the last 16, 17 years, and of course before then as well. So I think there is a growing understanding of the situation. We've obviously got to develop it. We've got to work together. We've got to continue to campaign. We've got to have meetings like this and keep getting the word out and strengthen that growing internationalism in British society. But I do believe that is a very, very strong basis on which to build a movement for real change and a movement for justice. So I'll end there, and I'll say once again thank you very much for inviting me, and I do hope that you the best wishes that we can possibly muster and the biggest support that we can possibly deliver for you from the Stop the War Coalition. We'll continue to fight alongside you and do everything we can to end dictatorship and end war. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, for those words of support. And I will just add very briefly that we in the Egyptian Revolutionary Council participated with you in against Trump's visit. That meant for us a great deal that we were able to work with you. Your presence here with us is an important sign that the struggle that we share is a struggle for justice, a struggle against dictatorship, a struggle against the injustices in our region, in the Middle East and throughout the world. And I can tell you on a personal level and on behalf of the ERC, we look forward to working together in the future and to stand with you on future occasions. Let me take this opportunity opportunity also to put forward the statement that was sent to us by the lawyer, the barrister, Toby Cadman, who apologizes for not being with us today, but Dr. Ahmed Henley has very kindly agreed to read the statement. Dr. Ahmed Henley from Birmingham Egyptians. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all. Thank you, Chairman, and it's given me pleasure and honor to be here among those distinguished speakers and prestigious guests coming from everywhere all over the UK. If you allow me, Chairman, just a few minutes just to say that we came all through the way from Birmingham, and maybe I'll be reading something more legal. I'm not legal from, from background. I'm medical from background. I'm a consultant physician working in Birmingham. So I felt really emotional when my colleague, Dr. Ahmed, was spoken about those victims in Rabia, and I really meant or understood what he meant about that. We as doctors, we're proud when we save lives during a cardiac arrest or something like that. So what he was describing, we have seen that on the TV, and we know what he's speaking about. Also what Chris mentioned earlier, and I appreciate what he's saying, in terms of stopping the war. If this was not the war, what could it be in Rabia? So he is speaking about stopping the war. This was a war against humanity. Dr. Dawood Abdullah as well mentioned the same, that if they're changing the name of the square, it will remain in our hearts, and it will remain, the symbol is here, what I'm carrying. I like symbols. This is a symbol of Rabia. Remember, that's the symbol, because the square was from the number 40, becoming a symbol of liberty and freedom and steadfastness, and everybody just putting the t-shirts. Also, I want to mention something else. Although you find those everywhere here, those square Rabia sign, also you find the Egyptian flag. I'm originally from Egypt, obviously, and we're proud to be Egyptian, proud of the Egypt and our flag, because the regime has just hijacked our country, if you like. And the Egyptians, the British Council, you can see the symbol, you can see the 3 colors of our flag as well. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the efforts done by the ERC, and I want to thank personally Dr. Ma as well for this steadfastness. I'll go through the statement just straight away now. So this, on behalf of Toby Kaplan, who couldn't be here, he said, I would first seek to apologize for not being able to be attended in person. However, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have this statement read out, highlighting what still remains as an important issue. On the 3rd of July, Egypt's first democratically elected president, thank you very much, Mr. Mohamed Morsi, was forcibly removed from power by way of military coup d'etat. It is immaterial whether individuals agreed with the policies he sought to and had enacted. The fact remains that he was elected by the citizens of Egypt through a fair and transparent process. His removal, therefore, if it was indeed the will of the people, should have been a result of the same process. At the end of his tenure, not at the borough of government. Egypt, for a short period, enjoyed the freedom that those that took to the streets and those stood in Tahrir Square demanded. That freedom was all too short-lived, however, and with the forcible end to Morsi's administration came the forcible end of that freedom. The Egypt we see today is no different to the oppressive states ruled over by Mubarak, and arguably has descended further into autocracy actually at the hands of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. As he come to be expected when considering any such regime, autocracy and oppression and mass human rights violations go hand in hand. It is only through the subjugation of its citizens that a country can remain an autocratic state, as the biggest threat to such a regime is freedom. Egypt is no different in this regard, and from the very beginning of Sisi's rule, mass human rights violations and the commission of crimes against humanity were evident. 4 years on, 14th of August 13, more than 1,000 protesters were murdered and nearly 4,000 more were seriously injured at the hands of the Egyptian security forces. Those individuals were exercising their democratic rights to protest at Rabia Square, and yet the regime of Sisi would not tolerate such a protest, hence the raid on unarmed citizens. There is no justification for the actions witnessed 4 years ago, much as there is no justification for the inaction from the international community. In the past 4 years, the calls for justice have been many and all entirely justified. It is intolerable that yet again we see an instance of impunity being allowed to reign. The question, however, is what is to be done. In the short term, it appears unlikely that any formal action will take place. The position of the International Criminal Court, ICC, is clear, is that without a country being a state party to the Rome Statute, it has no mandate to investigate the situation, no matter how serious. Egypt, unfortunately, is not a state party, and thus the situation can only fall within the jurisdiction of the Office of the Prosecutors of the ICC, if the situation is referred to it by the UN Security Council. This itself has its own issues, given the right of veto held by the permanent members of the Council. The reality, therefore, is that at present it's unlikely that the matter will be referred to the ICC. That is not to say that it will never happen, and there are examples of the process of accountability that has occurred some years after the event. It is therefore imperative that Rabia Square and those other instances of mass human rights violations, etc., are recorded and investigated. Alternative methods of accountability must, however, be sought. An obvious mechanism to be utilized is that of universal jurisdiction. Universal jurisdiction is the process by which the legal system of another state can be used to investigate and prosecute offences that are alleged to have occurred elsewhere, outside its borders. And a prime example of this being the case against the Syrian regime filed by Guernica, 37 Chambers in Spain. And in this matter, the victim is the sister of a Syrian citizen murdered by Assad regime. However, she also holds Spanish citizenship, and therefore it has been argued that the Spanish courts retain jurisdiction to investigate and hear the case. A similar case has been filed in Germany, and further members of Guernica Chambers have also submitted similar filings with the Metropolitan Police in connection with the current situation in Gaza and the occupied territories in Palestine. The central point, therefore, is that simply because the international community appears unwilling to address the situation, there are steps that can be taken and steps that should be taken to pursue justice and accountability. The question of why the international community remains silent and appear content to allow impunity to continue is a separate issue. And there is, to my mind, a combination of reasons for this. Firstly, simple economies. Egypt, in monetary terms, is a valuable trade partner for the US and for the UK. And we have historically seen where there is significant trade, there is often a reluctance to criticize or take action that may jeopardize that. Secondly, and quite wrongly, Egypt is seen as a partner in the global fight against terror, and again there is a reluctance to take a position that some way see as allowing extremists to fester further. The difficulty with this, however, is that when you oppress citizens to the extent that they have no voice or no ability to challenge through normal means, there are those that will take to increasingly severe actions to have their position heard. It is arguably, therefore, that through oppression, extremism is allowed to prosper. Therefore, the problem is exacerbated rather than controlled. This oppression infects all elements of citizens' life. and has been outlined at the outset, the biggest threat to an autocratic leader is freedom. A citizen's freedom to speak and to express undermines the basis upon which the autocratic leader builds their power. It is for this reason that those that sought to protest against DC find themselves before the courts and subjected to what can only be viewed as show trials. Mass trials in which defendants are prevented from speaking, prevented from seeing the evidence against them, and prevented from securing legal representation are not trials at all. They are simply another weapon of autocratic leader to ensure that dissent is removed and thus further entrench his grasp on power. Toby Cadman, Article 37, International Justice Chambers. Thank you very much.
I'd like to now turn to Mr. Mohammed Sudan, Foreign Affairs Spokesman in the Freedom and Justice Party.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before I start, may I ask all the attendees to stand up for 1 minute, respecting and condolence for all the murders which have been killed by the military authority in Egypt after the 3rd of July 2013. Till now, every day we have people being killed by this kind of fascist military authority in Egypt. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank for everybody who came here today to show solidarity for the 4th anniversary, for the big massacre in the century, or the recent century, in Egypt. More than 2,600 people been killed in just 10 hours. Almost now we passed the 10,000 people being killed by this dictatorship regime in Egypt. I want to say that the life in the era of Morsi, from 2012 to 2013, just 1 year, it was the best era for the Egyptian citizens live with a democratic system, with the free speech, with the free life, which people were very, very honest to work to serve the Egyptian people. They are working hard for this year, maybe before that, just after the revolution of the 25th of January. Especially the Freedom and Justice Party members, Muslim Brotherhood members, they worked very hard to serve the Egyptian people, to have a better lifestyle, the better style life for the Egyptian people, not only for the Muslim Brotherhood. They were not looking to rule Egypt. They were looking to serve the Egyptian people, to have a better life. But unfortunately, some little few people, they were cooperated with this military regime, and they believe all the fabricated crises which made as a conspiracy by the military authority in Egypt, leading by Abdel Fattah Sisi, the mass killer, the betrayer, which betrayed all the Egyptian people at that time. Unfortunately, this mass killer be supported by the West, supported by Washington, supported by Tel Aviv, supported, unfortunately, with some Gulf countries, Muslim Gulf countries, to kill these people, to kill the Egyptian people in a big massacre. not only in Rab'a. We have 3 big massacres in Rab'a and Al-Nahda, and also in Mansoura, in Alexandria and Sidi Gabel, Qadi Ibrahim, and elsewhere in Egypt. We have bloodshed started from the 3rd of July 2013 till now. Egypt now turned to be a fear state, to be a military state, to be a police state. Those people, generals, they stole the power from the democratic elected president, Dr. Morsi, and they put him in jail with all of the unlawful structures. As they said with the leak, that they put him in jail without no reason. For 2 months, they disappeared him, they hijacked him. Now, after we enjoyed with a 1 year, a very democratic country, as every Egyptian looked to have a freedom country, to have a free speech, to have a democratic country. But this guy, Abdel Fattah Sisi, not only killed the people in the streets, in Rab'a, in Al-Nahda, in Mansoura, but also he killed the dream of the Egyptians to have a free country, to have a real country, not a big prison. Now, all the Egyptians live in the big prison. This mass killer turned Egypt to be a big prison. Everyone inside Egypt now wants to have freedom, want to get out this prison. No free speech, no parliamentarian life, no political life anymore. They killed us, they killed our dream. Our message for all the families of the murders in Egypt: we will never ever forget this blood. We will never ever forget our kids, our brothers, our mothers, our fathers, which they lost their life inside Rab'a and out of Rab'a and all the soil of Egypt. We will never forget them. They are our crowns over our heads. They are in our hearts. We'll never ever forget them. And our message for the military authority, these killers, we will not ever give up. We will follow you in all the course in Allah the wallet. We will never give up. If we lose one, we will fight in another one. Peacefully struggling. If you push us to turn it to violence, we tell you, forget it. Our policy is to struggle in a peacefully. We will put the international community, which they keep supporting you, we're going to embarrass them. Because this is our policy, to peacefully struggling. And we know, inshallah, that we will get the victory. We will break you down. And finally, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will support us. We will get our target, our goals, to restore our dignity back, to restore our freedom back. This is our aim, and we'll never ever, inshallah, give up. Last thing is, I was in Rab'a, and I was in Masjid Iman, the Iman Mosque, just beside Rab'a. I cannot forget all this blood. Also, I cannot forget the parents, which they came to the mosque looking for their relatives, sons, daughters, fathers, burned bodies, smoked. You can smoke, you can smell it till the second day. After 24 hours, you still smoke these burning bodies. They were looking for their sons or daughters. We cannot recognize them. Then those people who killed our brothers and our sons, daughters, they are not human beings. I don't think that those people, killers, they are not human beings. Those people are mass killers. Sisi and other generals, police, or military, they hate us. They hate the Egyptians. They killed us in a cold blood. And that will never forget to them these plaque points. They put it in the history of the military and the history of the Egyptian police. That will be in the end of our life. And inshallah, we will restore back our freedom, our country, from those people who stole it, stole our resources, stole our dignity and freedom. We get it back, inshallah. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed Sudan, for those powerful words and for that message of determination. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Let me turn now to Dr. Farouk, who will be talking to us about Dr. Farouk from Birmingham Egyptians, who has kindly participated also in the earlier session, but will tell us now about a very important campaign.
داون داون سيسي
داون داون سيسي
داون داون سيسي
داون داون سيسي
free free مرسي
free free مرسي
free free مرسي
free free مرسي.
Bismillah. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahat. 3 weeks ago, we started the international campaign against extrajudicial killing. الحملة العالمية ضد القتل خارج القانون. And Egypt is the only country in the world now practicing it. With the dictatorship regime, they practice safely without almost no condemnation worldwide. Hundreds of our brothers, mainly males, have been killed in their bedrooms, and then they falsified the story. They said, we spotted them. When we approached them, they started to shoot at us, and then we returned the fire and we killed them. And according to an Egyptian journalist, he said, it is a very surprising thing that all through these attacks, not a single security officer has been injured, let alone killed. So it's all staging it. They just make this announcement and they never become tired from repeating it almost every day. I said hundreds since the 3rd of July. Last month, only in July, 62 young Egyptian university students and graduates have been killed by this brutal dictatorship regime of Egypt now. We divided the campaign into stages. Alhamdulillah, we finished the first stage in 60 days. It took 60 days from us, and we communicated with head of states, prime ministers, foreign ministers, religious leaders like the Pope and Archbishop of Canterbury, and also parliamentarians worldwide. The second stage, we corresponded with the United Nations Secretary General and with 132 United Nations permanent representatives. And this second stage took 7 days. Inshallah, this week, the coming week, will start the third stage, and the title of the third stage is Stop Egypt's Dictator from Addressing United Nations. He will be in New York for a visit to the United States, and he, over the past 2 years, he spoke to the United Nations General Assembly, and this year also is planning to do the same thing. In the letter which we are going to send to almost every representative of state in the United Nations and the head of states and others, we are talking about the principles of the United Nations. I want to go through all of it, but I will just pick up a couple of paragraphs from it. The United Nations is based on promoting and spreading peace across the globe and protecting the human rights of world population. However, on several occasions throughout its history, its implementation of these principles was suboptimal. One such setback is that dictators managed to sneak on its podium and address the world on moral issues. Hardly they stick to it. On top of those tyrants is General Sisi of Egypt, who twice before spoke in front of the United Nations General Assembly. And then in a big paragraph, we spoke about the crimes which Sisi is committing, from the successive massacres to detaining more than 60,000 Egyptians, including women and children, in totally inhumane prisons and centers where they are subjected to all sorts of maltreatment, malnutrition, and so on. Hundreds of them have died because of denial of treatment and the denial of medical care. Documented cases of rape and sexual abuse by the security forces, forced displacement, tahjir, confiscation of property and funds, and the dismissal from jobs are daily occurrences. Extrajudicial killing is and enforced disappearance are thriving under Sisi's rule. And of course, he imposed ban on free expression and closed all NGOs, that is the like human rights and other organizations. And then we spoke about, because we were told by the Europeans and the Americans that what we are seeking is stability of Egypt and the stability of the region. So what this military rule is doing regarding those two aspects, so explain that he neither stabilized Egypt nor he stabilized the region. And we explain, for example, he committed against many crimes against the sovereignty and the rest of the Egypt, that included concessions of the oil and the gas fields east of the Mediterranean, the giving away of 2 islands in the Red Sea, and the signing of agreement of construction of the Renaissance Dam Said the Nahda with Ethiopia without previous consultation with experts and the true representatives of the people of Egypt. But we are trying to say that this will never lead to stability of the country, because this made the Egyptians furious about all these concessions which this military rule is doing to the country, and of course this will make a lot of misunderstanding between the country and other countries which they gave these concessions to them. We also said that his involvement, particularly the Egyptian troops and the shipment of arms to areas of conflicts in the Middle East, namely Syria, Libya, Yemen, Sudan, and South Sudan, and the blockade of Qatar state are all recipes for future conflicts between Egypt and its neighbors. And we concluded our letter that Sisi is using the United Nations platform to legitimize his regime and his atrocities, and we asked head of states and others to not allow the Egypt dictator from addressing the United Nations General Assembly from over its honorable stage. You have noticed that we are not saying the fascist, the criminal, the Nazis, the this and that, because as you know, this letter goes all over the world, and you have to be very careful regarding the expression. We all know that, but there are words which are not allowed to be in such letters. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farouk, and inshallah this campaign will gain a great deal of momentum. We continue to work. The initiative that you've put forward is an important one, and I think it's an example of the fact that although we are gathered here today to remember Rابعة, the work must continue outside Egypt, inside Egypt, because we have a struggle that we have to continue. Rابعة represented those that rejected the military regime and wanted to protect their democracy and their choice of president and their hope for a better Egypt that protected rights and freedoms. That struggle will continue. We here gathered in this conference are only a small example of the millions that I believe are in Egypt who are, although they are silent, believe the same dream and share the same dream that we have, that Egypt one day will be free. But the steps that we have to take for its liberation will be hard. It requires patience, sabr, and preparation, al-i'dad. And we will be patient, and we will prepare, and we will, as I said earlier, return to Rابعة, to our squares, to our cities, to our villages. Egyptians will liberate their country from the military dictatorship, inshallah, and we will celebrate together throughout Egypt soon, bi'iznillahi ta'ala. Thank you very much. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the panelists, to thank all the participants, to thank you for coming from far, from Birmingham, from Leeds and from Europe, and to thank the organizers. And I would like to give a personal thank you to Sheikh Mohammed Tolba for the first session, and a very special thank you to my dear sister and selfless contributor to this revolution, Dr. Sohad Sheikh. Thank you very much.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن للمتقين مفازا حدائق وأعنابا وكواعب أتراها وكأسا دهاقا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا جزاء من ربك عطاء حسابا رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما الرحمن لا يملكون منه خطابا يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن وقال صوابا إنا أنذرناكم عذابا قريبا يوم ينظر المرء ما قدمت يداه يوم ينظر المرء ما قدمت يداه ويقول الكافر يا ليتني كنت ترابا صدق الله العظيم.
كان يا مكان كان في إشارة بقت ميدان ناس حلمها يعود الوطن لولاده من بعد اللي كان
كبر الميدان وصبح وطن فرح الوطن مليون ميدان
عن التراب بدم ودموع الشباب مهما أذان الفجر غاب رجع أكيد شمس النار.
Şimdi bütün meydanlar bir Rabia'dır kardeşim. Milyonlarca esma ile çarpıyor kalbimiz bizim.
سجني بلا سقف وحيطان أنا سجني مفتوح عالسماء وانت أسير ذل وهوان.
Por la esperanza por vivir libres decidieron salir por lo que piensan murieron no los podemos olvidar no los podemos olvidar.